Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, how are you?
We're, we're doing well. How are you?
Great, thank you. This is awesome.
Yes, it is. Thank you all for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks
We're
for
gonna
making this happen.
we're about 1 minute away from official launch, so we'll give it another minute, let more people log in.
Okay.
No one has any other plans, right?
All right. Okay, so I guess we'll get started. It's 5:45. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the PR League's annual Student Summit. We're very excited to have you join us virtually. We have an exciting lineup of panelists and speakers, so we're really excited to get this started. So first, I want to start by introducing tonight's facilitators, who will be moderating the individual breakout sessions that will take place later in the evening. I'll start with myself. My name is Bonnie Bergen. I'm the PR League Administrative Advisor. I'm also the Assistant Director for the MS in Public Relations and Corporate Communication program. Also joining us this evening will be Felicia Ong, who is the PR League Vice President and PRCC Class of 2021. We have Katie McCormick, PR League Secretary, Class of 2020. Vicki Lee, PR League Event Specialist and PRCC Class of 2021. And then last but certainly not least is Professor Shawnice Hawkins, who is the PR League Co-Academic Advisor, and she's also a faculty member here at NYU SPS and an NYU alumna. Okay, next slide, please. So before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone that this event will be recorded. So take a couple moments just to familiarize yourself with the information that's on this slide. Next slide, please. And just a couple housekeeping items that I'd like to address before we officially begin. So to avoid excess distraction during the panel, we ask that you keep yourselves muted and your video turned off. However, during the breakout session, those are meant to be a little bit more interactive and conversational, so we invite you to turn your camera on and your audio for those breakout sessions. One of the facilitators that I introduced in the last slide will be in each breakout session, and we'll be able to go over more specifics at the beginning of each session. So the main panel, which will begin in just a few minutes, will consist of a moderated panel discussion followed by Q&A from the audience. You should see in your black toolbar, there's a Q&A button and there's also a chat button. So if you have questions during the panel or after during the Q&A, please type any of your questions into the Q&A box. And if you have questions that are, if you're having technical issues or anything of that nature, if you're having trouble hearing us, please type those questions or comments into the chat box. So reserve the Q&A box for the panel related questions. Okay, and then finally, if you want to post on social media, please use our hashtag PRL Summit 20. And again, please type all questions into the Q&A box and we'll address those at the end in the order that we receive them. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have a very exciting lineup and I know you're all anxious to get started. So I just want to quickly go over the program just so that we're all clear on the agenda for this evening. So in a few minutes, we'll begin with our opening remarks, followed by the keynote panel. Around 7 p.m. Eastern time, we'll begin the moderated Q&A using, again, questions from the Q&A box. And we'll wrap that up around 7:15 Eastern time. So that gives us a couple of minutes to then log out of this session and log into the individual breakout sessions. And you all should have received an email today with those individual Zoom links. If you didn't, please let us know in the chat box and we'll be happy to share those links with you again. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over the virtual microphone to Katie McCormick.
Hi guys, so I'd like to virtually introduce Michael Diamond. He is the Academic Director of the Integrated Marketing Communications Department here at NYU School of Professional Studies. And he leads the MS in Integrated Marketing and MS in PR and Corporate Communications. I'd encourage you all to just take a look at his bio with the document we sent you. It is incredibly extensive and he is someone with years of experience in the field. Professor Diamond, we are incredibly happy to have you at our summit. The floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very, very much, Katie. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you all, and I want to welcome you to this online summit tonight, and certainly wish you and your families and your friends our strongest voice of support and hopes that you stay safe and well through these difficult times. The School of Professional Studies, as some of you, was founded in a spirit providing access and opportunity to people from all walks of life who are seeking to grow intellectually or culturally or professionally. So it's very much in the spirit that I celebrate the work of the PR League, who've brought us all together today, and acknowledge how they rapidly pivoted online, this summit online and into Zoom. For any paying attention, it's a very ambitious undertaking. There's over 30 different speakers in 6 different sessions, 5 of them running concurrently. So we hope the folks from Zoom are watching, because we think you should certainly receive a gold medal for such an effort. But I also want to add my thanks specifically to all of them to all of the participants, all of those 30 different speakers, for sharing their wisdom and their experience. And I'm as eager, I'm sure, as the students are to learn more from them this evening. And I think this whole enterprise also speaks a lot to why I believe, what I believe marks NYU School of Professional Studies as quite a unique academic institution. It's really the entrepreneurialism, the independence, and the stability of the students and faculty. We've built an amazing integrated marketing and communications department. We have over 1,200 students around the world and a faculty of about 250 experienced, engaged, and passionate professors and practitioners. So I really would like, on behalf of all of us, to thank the PR League leaders, Shrishti, Felicia, Katie, Anna, Alexandra, Vicky, and their faculty advisors, many of whom you'll hear from, Shawnice Hawkins and Alan Mogul, and our administrative team who support the PR program more generally throughout the year, Emily Ross, Bonnie, and Julie DeVito. So no doubt, I'm sure many other readers from the school student affairs, alumni relations, Wasserman Center, technology group, have all contributed to making this a success. So my thanks to them as well. And as we kick off, excuse me, as we kick off what I hope will be a wonderful symposium, I'm mindful of the fact, and this, I'll leave you with these thoughts, that almost 100 years ago, Edward Bernays, who's often considered the father or certainly one of the early pioneers of our profession, 100 years ago, Edward Bernays taught the very first academic program in what he then called and was minted the field of public relations at NYU. So NYU has been very much part of the professional and academic development of PR, and we're thrilled to be supporting the PR League and their summit today. So many thanks and the best of luck.
Thank you. So I'm going to kick it off to our panelists, but first I'd like to introduce them. First off, we have Shayna Gaskins, who is going to be our moderator. Shayna manages the marketing and communication for the Berkeley Center for Entrepreneurship at the NYU's Stern School of Business. After earning her bachelor's at Ithaca College, she got her master's right here at NYU in public relations and corporate communications. Next, we have our first panelist, and that is Stephanie Scott Bradshaw. Stephanie is a Spelman College graduate and is now a strategic communicator and entrepreneur who started her very own company called First and Last PR, which aims to give a personalized voice to niche brands, large or small. Not only is the company award-winning, but she also founded the First and Last PR Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating and empowering women working in the cosmetics and communication industry. Our second panelist is Nathan Edelsberg, and Nathan is an NYU alumni and is the Chief Operating Officer at Muckrack, which is a digital PR and journalism platform, which I'm sure a lot of us PR people have certainly used before. He is the past chair of the PRSA Tri-State District and the director of finance on the board of PRSA New York. Nathan is also the executive editor and co-founder of Found Remote, which is a news site about the future of TV. And our last, but certainly not least speaker is Caitlin Tehan. Caitlin is another NYU alumni, earning her master's in public relations and corporate communications. And prior to that, she was at Spring Hill College. Caitlin is the vice president at Fleischman Hillard and works with multiple household brands that leverage pop culture to generate and earned media coverage. Prior to joining Fleischman Hillard, Caitlin managed the New York office of a startup agency focused on travel and luxury and has spent time at Lee Communications. So I want to thank our three panelists and moderator, and I would just like to say again that I truly encourage everyone to look at the four of their bios. It was incredibly difficult to narrow down their bio into a short paragraph. So I only kind of touched on the surface of what they do, but they have an extensive background. So with that being said, Shayna, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'm excited to be here myself. Like Katie mentioned, my name is Shay, and I actually graduated from the PRCC program last May, so I was in many of your shoes not too long ago. It's great to see such a great turnout. Tonight's gonna be great, and I hope that everyone takes away something meaningful from this opportunity that they can use. And also a huge shout out to the PR League for putting this on. I'm sure you guys didn't expect to be doing this virtually, but it's a testament to your programming and all your people, how seamlessly you're able to put this together. All right, so finding your career path post-grad. It's a pretty loaded question, concept, idea, and it's very intimidating. And I'm sure it's on everyone's mind, even if you aren't graduating in the spring. But don't worry, everything will work out the way it's supposed to be. And I'm sure you hear that all the time, but trust me, it will. But it definitely helps to hear other people's journeys. And lucky for us, our panelists have some pretty interesting ones. So why don't we get started? So I guess I'll just, each of you can answer these questions. But can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and your past professional experiences, maybe something that we wouldn't know explicitly from your bios? Maybe we could start with
I'm
me.
happy to go first.
All right, awesome.
I can volunteer, no problem. Well, Shayna, thanks so much for having me. And it's, as everyone's been saying so far, this is so impressive. So congratulations to all of you. I want to give Michael a big shout out for his virtual background on Zoom, which, as you can see from my bedroom, I've yet to figure out on my own. But I'm seeing lots of people doing that on Zoom, so I'll get there. But yeah, just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Natan Edelsberg. And as you heard, I'm the COO at a company called Muckrack. We're a software platform that serves the public relations industry. And I'm lucky that both our other panelists today and their companies use our tool. My journey has been really exciting. I went to NYU. I studied media culture and communications undergrad in Steinhardt. I actually refounded PRSSA at NYU when I was there. So I've always been very involved in the PR community within NYU, which is why it's so exciting to see the PR League and other groups thrive. And I ended up considering whether I was going to go into a public relations career traditionally or more of a technology career. In addition to my great experience at NYU, my grandfather was in public relations. He worked at Burson, which is a big agency that many of you probably know. My mother was at MSL Group for her whole PR career. So it was kind of in my blood. But when I started college was right at the height of the last economic downturn, when, just like now, everyone had no idea what was going to happen. And for those of you that are students and that are considering what you're going to be doing next, in a positive way, I can't tell you how excited I am for you because of all the innovation that's eventually going to come out of this humanitarian crisis. So it will happen and you will all benefit from it and be at the forefront of it. I got lucky in the sense that, there were fewer jobs than ever before in like 2008. And I decided that working at a technology company was the kind of innovation that I thought would help progress the communications industry as well as my career. And I was right. I ended up joining as a producer for our first business called the Shorty Awards, which is a big award show for social media. We're also doing our event virtually, so this is good inspiration for that. And I ended up pivoting into our Muckrack business because of my public relations expertise. And today, I help work with our biggest customers and our partners to help use our technology to track a crisis like we're dealing with right now, to help find the right journalists to reach out to, and to help bridge the gap between journalism and PR. So that's a quick intro about myself.
Thank you. And how about Caitlin? Do you want to go next?
I'm happy to, and thank you, Natan. That was an awesome segue, as I am going to share that I mostly now work in technology. So I originally went to NYU directly following college for grad school. PRCC, was the president of PR League. Love the PR League. You guys do killer work, so thank you. I've found so much value in things like this, so I appreciate you guys inviting me back. After that, I ended up working mostly in lifestyle and fashion, and then moved into travel and luxury for a little while. It was great, phenomenal, worked at startups, mid-level, small, large agency, you name it. Worked in-house momentarily. And then I ended up transitioning my career more recently into deep tech. So I spend the majority of my time now focused on artificial intelligence and clients that are looking to apply it. I also spend quite a bit of time working with clients that apply artificial intelligence to solving major problems, things such as economic inefficiencies, climate change even, which has been a phenomenal experience. But part of my role currently at Fleischman Hillard is to bridge the gap between consumer practice groups and their clients and technology practice groups and their clients. There's so many synergies there, and it has been a phenomenal experience. I, in the same vein, agree that as unfortunate as this crisis is, I can only assume that there will be an insurmountable amount of innovation that comes out of it, specifically for our industry, but also for peripheral industries and our clients, which will make our work much more valuable, much more interesting, much more engaged, which is really a positive. So I'm happy to talk to you guys a lot about consumer, but also a lot about technology. The only thing I cannot share with you is anything pertaining to healthcare. Unfortunately, that is the one area that I have consciously stayed away from all of the red tape in the PR that's associated with it. But I'm very happy to be here and happy to answer your questions.
Thanks, Caitlin. And Stephanie, I just saw that you came in. I just asked Caitlin and Natan if they could tell us a bit about themselves and their past professional experiences, just to loop you into that question.
Sure. I'll give you the abbreviated version. Thank you for having me. I'll start off there. Really excited. So I'm Stephanie Scott Bradshaw. I'm the CEO and communicator-in-chief at First and Last PR. We're a beauty and healthy lifestyle-focused public relations agency, and we're based out of Jersey City, New Jersey. My career path started out on the other side of PR. So I was a beauty editor first before opening up my company. I've worked in-house for a luxury skincare company also, looking at all the global PR things from national to regional to international, wearing many hats in a small company. So also dealing with trainings in store, helping to sell the brand into retailers, and then doing full circle press in the afternoon to help expand the brand. And I think that some of that is super relevant to where we are today because as some of the other panelists were talking about, we really need to use all skills to move the business forward. So from 3Lab, I wound up taking a brief stint out of beauty into music. I worked with Usher on his OMG tour, helping to meld all of his brands together and looking at his music business, his fragrance business, and also his nonprofit, Usher's New Look. And the tour went really well. When the tour was done, I decided to go back to beauty, and I started my company a little bit over 8 years ago. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to be here and be able to share as much information as possible on as many fronts as I can. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know you guys all briefly touched upon this also, but how did you figure out which sector of the industry was like for you?
Try them all. I'm a really big fan of testing things out before making a decision. I don't think anyone can really fully say they like or don't like something until they try it. I also found so much value in trying everything and bringing best learnings from different industries to industries that may not have considered it previously. So I would recommend just trying it. I mean, you have nothing to lose and everything to learn and gain. That's my biggest piece of advice. Just do it.
I agree. I think every internship I did helped me figure out what I didn't like. So the more experiences you can get, the better. I remember my first ever PR internship was supposed to be paid, and then because of the recession, it wasn't paid anymore. But I still did it, and I learned a lot, and it helped inform a lot of my future decisions. So I hope that kind of thing doesn't happen to anyone, but try everything you can and take every opportunity you can. If you're getting someone coffee, get them the best cup of coffee you could ever get and have a great conversation with them as you hand it to them, and just ingest as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. I'd agree. I started off interning, and I thought originally I wanted to go into fashion only because I didn't know about careers in beauty. And so I wound up interning at Essence Magazine, and I was helping out in like the fashion closet and just soaking up all the information I possibly can. But when I learned that there were careers in beauty in the executive level, that's when I kind of turned from those racks to the beauty counters, and I never really looked back. So I think definitely diving in, soaking up as much information as possible. And I think the best way to learn is really hands-on. So applying what you're learning in school to real life situations through internships, mentorships, and everything in between. So I would agree.
Awesome. I agree too. And then I guess if you guys could have done anything differently in your career or journey thus far, what would you say that would be? I know it's a little bit of a loaded question.
I think I would have gone on more networking dates, which I think most of my former fellow student peers and colleagues would laugh at, because I'm probably the most abnormally social human being, hence why I'm in PR and in agency life. It might be impossible to go on one more networking date, but there's literally nothing to lose. There are people who I've been on networking dates with that have nothing to do with anything I ever thought I would work with, and they always come back into the picture. I'm a firm believer in social capital. Not just for people who are in PR, but everyone. It really just helps to show you a bigger picture, help you build your circles, but also give you a better vision of the world around you. And I'd highly recommend taking everyone on a coffee date. If it's the Starbucks barista, if it's your future new boss, like just do it. Have a coffee date, get to know them. You will be better for it and will learn something for sure.
I think I would have tried to stay in touch with more people from my, past internships and experiences. I think that something I always advise people when they're ending an internship is, make sure you get a reference from them before you leave. Both as a way to thank them and get direct feedback from them on how it went. And so you have something good for your LinkedIn or whatever to help you with your future career. And it's sometimes a awkward or difficult thing to ask, but if you've put in the time to do this experience and you've done a good job at it and you've built a good relationship, you want something to show for it. And the longer the time goes between when you worked with them and you need them, the less they're going to remember about you. So I wish I would have, I did it for some, but I wish for every single internship I did that. And I recommend everyone considering doing that too.
I'm thinking, I don't know what I would have done differently. I agree with everyone. I think they're great ideas. I'm like, oh, maybe I should have done that too. Um, Maybe I would have worked on my resume a little bit more just to bring out some more of like those qualities a little bit and just kind of bulleted out some things. But I think that, I don't know, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done differently. And I think also my career path was a little bit different. Like I didn't go straight into PR, but I also don't mind not going straight into PR. I was a sociology major who wound up working in magazines, who later opened up her own agency. So it's not traditional, but I don't miss any of like the road that I've taken. I value every step of it. And I feel like if I would have taken something a little bit more direct, I don't know that I would have learned all the life lessons and the business lessons that I've learned to now. So I'm not sure yet. I'll figure out by the end of the session. I'll come back to you on that, Shayna.
That's totally fine. And then kind of piggyback, you mentioned your business lessons and stuff like that. I guess what is the greatest lesson that you've learned and that you would like to kind of share with the group so far?
I think knowing that you have to know business and PR, that was like the biggest thing. So I think a lot of times we think that when we're in a more creative field and we're doing a lot of like writing, we don't have to know a lot about math and budgets and like traditional things. And a lot of the interns that come to Internet Personalized PR or like first years that are working with us, they're really surprised to know that there's a lot of math that goes into things. We have to look at budgets and costs and just make sure that whether we're doing events or anything that we're sourcing out, you know, multiple ways of doing things to make sure that we're delivering the best for our consumers and for the customers, for our clients actually. So I think that knowing the business side is like the number one thing for me. And to that point, I wound up actually going back to school a couple summers ago through a business program that Goldman Sachs does called Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. And it's an accelerator program that's amazing. And it teaches you a lot about business and finance and contracts and everything that you need to like run a company. And so that was introduced to me from a former boss when I was an editor who went through the program. And then I had a client that went through it. And then my accountant said, you should go ahead and do this. And so I finally got the nerve and the guts to do it. And it was amazing. So I think just knowing that, you know, a lot of things in PR seem like fun. I think we always have this image of like, you know, Samantha from Sex and the City, and she's got a clipboard, she's at the club. And I think a lot of times now, especially with Instagram, it seems like PR is so cool, but there's a real life business side to it. And you have to deliver for your clients. They're going to ask you about ROI and tracking, which is where Muck Rack comes in very handy. And Hannah and I are very good friends in that sense.
Thanks for the plug.
Of course. So just kind of knowing like all those things that are really important. You know, for us each month, we deliver a client campaign report. And so knowing what, you know, how to track your results, where your stories are coming from, what is this, you know, how many uniques do you have, you know, on a post or on a story, and what does that translate to? And now it's Instagram and other social things. It's just really important to know all of these things as well. So I think just kind of knowing the not so fun side, which once you get further along in your career, it'll actually be more exciting. You'll be like, wow, this posted this or this story did that. And you'll actually be able to see all the ROI that's coming out from the hard work that you're doing. So it becomes very exciting. But I think that's kind of the thing that we don't always talk about that I've learned to enjoy a lot and look forward to a lot.
That's a good point. Do you guys, Nathan and Kaylin, do you have anything to add to that as well?
I could go first. I loved Stephanie, what you were saying. I think, you know, I think I too am always looking for new opportunities to learn. I think, you know, it could be watching a YouTube video about something you didn't know on Excel to doing something more organized and strategic. So I think always just being in the mindset that, you know, your education needs to continue and that you need to build new skills is something I highly recommend.
I apologize. My dogs were having a moment. Hence my need to not come off of
No
mute.
worries. I have no dogs here, so happy to
You
Happy
can
to
have
help
one
you
of
out.
mine. So I would agree with you. Oh, we're making an appearance. Sorry. I would agree with you. I think that people don't realize that PR is actually a jack of all trades type of situation where you really are required to learn a lot of different things in very short periods of time, which is awesome if you're into learning and you like the intensity of it. But it requires you, of course, to learn things like business, like Stephanie mentioned, and to constantly evolve. But it also requires you to become an expert in the fields in which your clients are present and the fields that they're not, which can be overwhelming. And you might think, why do I have to know all this deep stuff about how AI and coders work together? But that's actually really important. So I think, if you have a degree in a different field and you're going into this for the first time, working in PR in that field, that will be super helpful for you. I don't think that there's anything you couldn't learn, which is awesome. It's definitely a learn on the job situation, but at the end of the day, it's really important to consider that this is jack of all trades. And if you're willing to take on the challenges that come on a daily or even minute by minute basis, then this is definitely the place for you.
Awesome. And then I just saw a message here. So building upon what Stephanie said about learning the business and math side of the industry, what is one thing I guess you guys would say to yourself? I wish they taught this to my new employees at school when you are first employing young professionals starting out in their careers, excuse me.
I'll say a couple of things. I think first, one is like Google 101. I think certain things, because we're so social now, I think that a lot of times, newer employees are coming to us with things that I'm literally like, just Google that, like literally first before you're asking anyone else in your team. I think just start off with the simple, if you don't know what it is, Google and like ask and just pretend that maybe you know, or like engage in that way, or at least take the first step into figuring it out and then diving in deeper. I think that's one, but I definitely think some math and like finance classes. I know that for a long time we've talked about how a lot of universities don't talk about personal finance and like how to budget things, but I definitely think as many, not tons of math classes, but certainly like a basic math, economics, writing also, like PR is a lot of writing press releases and reports and how to put things in for clients. So those are super important. And if you can fit in any type of graphic design, you'll be a total rock star, because whether you're working on presentation decks for your clients or for any type of presentation you have to do, or it could be for social media as well, those things are going to be super important. And so having those design capabilities, and so many great schools now have that, or you can, like Natan said, go onto YouTube and just learn how to do certain things. But I think any type of math, writing, social media, those would definitely give you an edge up against just traditional things that you would typically think you would need, and Google, and Google too.
I agree with everything Stephanie said. And I'd also like to note two things. Again, the design thing, super important. I did not get enough of that in school. And I have to tell you, thank goodness I launched Design Intelligence for PowerPoint for Microsoft, because I don't know what I did before then. It was a hot mess. I definitely lean on my designers way too much. But I would also say research and then writing for research, I think, is really important. I know that a lot of us, me included, initially wanted to go into more consumer lifestyle fields that maybe utilize research a little bit less often than some fields like technology and healthcare. But writing for research is super important, and being able to understand it and conduct your own. I know many of you will do theses where you work with the IAB and things of that nature, where you're required to build your own research and dissect it and really get to know it. But doing that for larger scale programs and products, especially when humans are involved, is a whole nother story. Being able to understand the topic, dissect it, and share it out in a way that's consumer facing or investor facing, whatever your audience might be, is really difficult, and something that's very nuanced. So I definitely wish we spent more time on not just conducting the research, but regurgitating it in an intelligent fashion for the appropriate audience. So if you can ever take advantage of additional research opportunities or writing for those moments, I'd highly recommend that.
The only thing I'll add maybe is like I wish there was, you know, classes that are about like the tech stack you need to know at any company. I think which is in line with what you're both saying, but you know, teaching people how to use Slack and Zoom and Trello and Google Apps and CRMs and marketing automation tools. And I think the first 2 days of onboarding at our company are pretty much like getting set up on all the tools that we use. And it just is such a value add when someone comes into a role having used those similar tools before. And I think because of all this, everyone's becoming a Zoom expert and probably expert on other tools. So we're kind of getting that education whether we want it or not. But I think that's something that I could see being valuable, where 10 years ago, I couldn't imagine that that would be something that would be useful.
Yeah. And I can add one more thing. I agree with that, but I wrote down something I remembered. I think also if there's any type of way that you can take a class, whether it be like a Toastmasters, but anything on presenting, I think also because we're so used to like being on our phones all the time and not just speaking to people, when it comes to being in a meeting room or presenting to a client and just enunciating and speaking strongly and vocally and like really owning your stuff, that's something that I feel like people could definitely focus a lot more on, or even just practicing in a mirror or in the bathroom. That's one more thing. So I think it's another skill, just your presentation skills in general would be one more thing to kind of focus on while you're in school, whether it's a perfect class or whether it's something outside the classroom as well.
Awesome. And then, sorry. All right. That was all wonderful. All right. So mentors. I feel like that everyone's always talking about they have a mentor. I don't have a mentor. Is it the end of the world if you don't? Should I get one? Like everyone else has one. I feel like I should. Like, what is y'all's take on that?
I believe in having 3 mentors at all times, which might be a little bit aggressive. I think it's really important to put people in your life that have very different perspectives. So one of the challenges I created for myself actually when I was back at NYU was to give myself 3 different mentors consistently. They don't have to be the same all the time. They can evolve and change and grow just as you do, which is important. But the idea that you surround yourself with people who are different than you and have different points of view and different perspectives is really important. I don't see the value necessarily in surrounding yourselves with people who are like-minded, which I think we tend to do a lot of the time. It's like reading something that you already agree with. You know, why would you do that? You can just talk to yourself. So I think that's a really important thing to do. And I do just want to note that your mentor doesn't have to be necessarily someone who's like overly formal. It doesn't have to be a very formal, intense relationship. A mentor can be someone that you're family friends with, somebody that you know, maybe it's a peer that's very advanced that you look up to. Mentors take a variety of forms. I've been in many situations where I feel that I have mentors who actually work directly for me. So I would encourage you not to limit yourselves in terms of how we think of mentors traditionally. It can be so many different things and so many different types of people, and it doesn't necessarily have to pertain even to work directly. So take advantage of the people around you that you respect for their different qualities and really learn and grow from that.
Shayna and panelists, thank you for being here and again for all of your feedback so far. I am checking in because we actually have 2 questions. We have one from an anonymous attendee that has asked, what is the name of the Goldman Sachs program that Ms. Stephanie Scott Bradshaw mentioned?
The program is called Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, or you may see it as Goldman Sachs 10KSB. And they also have a similar program that's done through Tory Burch called the Tory Burch Foundation, which is women specific. There's a certain amount that you have to make in order to enter into the program, but it's fantastic. And they do it nationally. I went through the program through LaGuardia Community College. but it's a phenomenal program. You can check out the website for more information. So it's the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program.
Great, thank you. We have a question that just popped up from Sam. I know my school offered a course where you can, oh, I guess the question was withdrawn. Okay, so Anonymous Antedney has asked, what kind of background or skills should you have to work in the technology field?
I feel like Natan and I both have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'll let you go first.
I will keep it brief. I was going to say the same about yourself. I'm excited to hear what you think too. I could take the angle from, working in tech versus working in tech PR. So if I answer your question from like what kind of skills to go into technology, there's kind of two routes that I find. One is like if you want to go the business direction or if you want to go the programming engineering direction. Because any technology company is driven often by those who create the technology. So I don't have any programming or engineering skills, unfortunately. I wish I did. So I went the business route, and a very common way to grow within a tech company on the business route is to go into some kind of sales or marketing or operations. Sales is the most common, I'd say, followed by marketing, followed by operations. And a very common entry-level role that you should all at least look up in Google is called a sales development representative. It's kind of the bottom of the food chain, but it's also a really great learning experience and program, and often has a pretty decent salary trajectory too. So that's my recommendation, from the pure technology side, which is, basically what I did. And I get to work with PR people every day, but I'm not, a PR practitioner.
Yet.
Great.
Yet.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
We're all about to be, right?
Bring him over.
That's true. I do crisis comms all the time. That's a fair point. We're all in crisis comms.
So what you're
mode.
saying is you're not hurting for business right about now. Thank you.
We're all struggling.
So the question from Sam is back. I know my school offered a course where you can get your certification in Google Analytics, which I was able to do. But do you see people still doing it, still doing that now and actually using it?
Yes, use it. Take the class. You will never regret taking a class in analytics or using a tool. Even if you don't end up working at a job where you're using Google Analytics specifically, your future boss will want to know that you've at least used something comparative, which is awesome that you will have. You'll be able to bring different perspective, and to be honest, in a lot of scenarios, the tools are really, really similar. I would find it hard to believe that you would be kicking yourself for not using Google Analytics. That's one of the first questions that I ask a lot of members of our team.
Great. Another question came in. What kind of background or skills should we have to work in the technology field?
I only look for passion, to be honest. I have experience in programming and coding. I never did anything with it in my career. We have engineers on our team as well, but unless you're passionate, I can't make you be. That's the biggest thing, especially in tech. I think a lot of people love tech because there's hype around it. There's a lot of job opportunity, a lot of growth opportunity, and it's honestly everywhere and it's in everything. You will use it all the time. You use it every day. But I can't teach someone to be passionate about topics, and it's honestly so rare to find people who are truly interested in different parts of technology, everything from AI and machine learning, natural language processing, you name it. If it's super niche, there will be someone who's willing to hire you because of that. A great example, even at an agency, a great example that we have is that on staff, we have a literal AI expert. His whole job is to just know about it and be the smartest. And it's awesome. I get to talk to him all day about things he's reading, Davos panels he's moderating, and he's not from PR. He doesn't have a PR background, and to an extent, he's still not doing PR, but he is with us in a very different way. So just bring the passion, find the things that you love in tech, and there will be something there for you.
Excellent. We have a question from the audience that says, how do you start a job in the music industry?
Depends on the job.
I think you make a TikTok account. Isn't that what everyone does today?
Yeah.
I think speaking specifically to PR, I would assume is kind of where it's going. I think when you think about certain careers or certain aspects of things, they always seem like they're a little bit harder to go into. And I feel like entertainment, fashion, like they're a little bit more niche. And so it feels like those are the quote unquote glamorous things. And so it may be a little bit harder. But I think with any job you're going to go into, the first way to get your foot in the door is just to gain some experience. And so I think the question we always get from interns and students and like first years is, well, how do you get that experience? But I think it's just going back to what Caitlin said, like it's about the passion that you have. So if you're really passionate about music, that should be like exuding from you and everything that you're doing. You should be attending concerts. You should know what's happening on the radio now. You should know what's happening in the industry. You should know what's happening with the labels. Like you should have a certain interest that's developed through the research already that you've been doing. Your IG page should like reflect that. There should be conferences that you're attending to go to, and through those different mechanisms, you can meet other people that may become a mentor or may be able to tell you about first year roles or things that you can do to get involved in that way. But I think for any career that you're going to go into, once you have the passion for that industry and that thing, you're innately going to fall into that because you're surrounding yourself by that and you're drawing it to you. So I think that's where it all starts.
We all probably also know someone who's in a band or have a friend of someone who's in a band. Maybe they're good, maybe they're not, but volunteer to help them out, and good resume booster too. And hopefully it'll be fun as well, kind of helping them on their journey.
That's great. We have a question. What are your non-negotiables in your job?
I'll speak. So mine's a little bit different, only because I'm coming from an agency owner perspective. So some of the things that we like we don't do mean people. And it may sound super simple, but I think that sometimes when you're being hired by a client or you're working with different vendors, they may look at PR as kind of different, or like you could be pushed over, you have to do something. But I think that the way that we look at it, I really look at PR more as service. So we're helping clients, we're helping brands, we're helping the end consumer to get better things and to live happier lives. So our non-negotiable really is nasty people. We will not work with, whether we're employing them or whether we are being employed by them or whether we're taking them on as clients. We just won't work with nasty people. So I think for us, we have to believe in the product, believe in what we're doing. So if not, we can't tell your story if we don't believe in that. And then everything else kind of falls in from there. So.
Jump in here too. I know over at Stern, we have a lot of student assistants, employees that work with us. So we definitely try to never lose sight of the fact that we're there to help these students learn. And even though they might not know something or I might not know something, it's really important to like cultivate a learning environment and a positive learning environment at that. And you don't want to lose sight of that because you can learn so much from, like I learn so much from my students every day, and I hope that they learn the same amount from me. So just to not lose sight of like that learning environment is really important for my business.
Excellent. Okay, so we have another question. How do you start a networking date and who do you reach out to?
I think using your network at NYU is a great place to start. I'm involved in Steinhardt's mentorship program for media, culture, and communication, the department that I got my degree in, and I hosted a dinner recently and a bunch of people came to it. So I think, that's the perfect place to start. I also, to reference what Caitlin mentioned before, not everything has to be super formal. So think about the people you already know around you that could potentially be mentors and ask them for coffee and make it clear that it's for an informational interview or for just, picking their brain about something. So just be, bold enough to reach out to someone to schedule a virtual or hopefully real coffee eventually.
Okay. Is anyone else want to answer that, or would you like to move on?
I can get super tactical really quickly.
I knew you were dying to, Caitlin.
I can't tell you how many emails I get on LinkedIn, and the subject line is coffee ? And it's, hey, Caitlin, I went to NYU, or I'm looking to graduate, or I need advice about whether or not I should take an internship over another internship. Do you have 20 minutes to go to coffee with me? And my answer is always yes. It's literally that simple. I find it to be honestly a lot easier and much better when you're straightforward. Just ask them to coffee, tell them why you appreciate them, and they'll make the time. It might not happen on your time. I know that so many people are super busy, and it's also obviously awkwardly virtual at this point, but I feel like most of the time people will respond to you and they will engage, especially if you're being personal and authentic in your note. And it doesn't mean that you have to write 7 sentences about how amazing their LinkedIn page is before you reach out to them and finally say, can we go to coffee? You can tell them why you appreciate them and ask them if they can make 15 minutes for you. If most people will be happy to do it. I'm one of those. So if you ever need anything, I might take a while, but I will get there. I promise.
Well, thank you very much for the offer. I have to acknowledge my co-advisor here, Professor Alan Mogul. He actually asked a question. He said, if I'm allowed, but he's awesome, so he's allowed. He asks, did you all start your careers in New York City? And if so, did you consider working in another city in the United States or elsewhere? And is it easier or more difficult to work in New York City earlier in your careers?
I did not start my career in New York. I actually started it down in DC and then migrated to New York. I think that New York City has much higher expectations, in my opinion, than most cities, which is great. It challenges you to be better. So starting your career here can be really tough, but to me, it's worth the work. Once you do it, you literally can do it anywhere. There's no place that will raise the bar higher, in my opinion. Others might feel differently, but what you have access to here is so varied in most places, in most cities, and as you can imagine in DC, it's very industry specific, it's very focused, but you have so many options here, so I would recommend not perceiving it as a negative challenge, but a positive one.
I was born on the Upper East Side. I went to NYU. I'm in Stuytown right now, and I will never be dragged out of New York no matter what happens. So I couldn't agree more that it's a really great place to get experience in. I think just, statistically, there's more public relations opportunities here because we're the media capital of the world. So I think the good news is there's lots of opportunities to work for companies that are based in New York or have a presence in New York, even if you're not in New York. So even before everything that's happening now, my company's always been a remote first company. And we talk about all the time how we were voted one of Crane's top 100 NYC companies, but we have employees who live full-time in Idaho that work for us and have been able to build careers. So I think one of the innovations that's going to come out of all of this is you could be sitting on your beachfront apartment in Hawaii and working for a top PR firm in New York if you wanted, as long as you have the right skills and internet. Yeah, exactly. Well, I say that because we just hired our first employee in Hawaii.
Yay.
I can move to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Ladies, you can move to, we could all move to Hawaii. Okay, our next question. When trying to apply to jobs in PR with an MS degree, but no direct experience, how can you position your resume or cover letter to reflect your knowledge without direct experience? I will answer this question, I would say in part, and then I'll open the floor. We are going to be discussing, just for the listeners who are online, we are going to be discussing some of these topics and unpacking them in more depth during our breakout sessions. We will ask our panelists here to, of course, answer that question, but if you'd like more details, we'll be transitioning to our breakouts, and you're more than welcome to get even more detailed into that. So I'm opening the floor. What do you think, panelists? Is there a way to sort of break in without having deep experience?
I'm gonna go back to my answer. I think, yeah. I think as long as it's what you want to do and you can exhibit that and you can show how that degree played in. Again, I come from a different place. I was a sociology major. I'm now working in PR. So I didn't necessarily study PR undergrad, and I think if someone would have asked me, but I showed them why I went into sociology. I was passionate about images of women in the media, and I was passionate about this, and I showed them this is what I really wanted to do. I think one thing that you can do, especially with social, is get involved that way. Like one of the first things that I ask people, kind of casually, but I'm curious, like, are you following us on Instagram? Sometimes they say no, and I think it's crazy, and it's such a turnoff. As a candidate, if you're not even following my company on social, you're not following us on LinkedIn, you don't know what we're doing, you've never visited my website before, why would I even want to hire you? I feel like you're just picking me out of any other agency in the yellow pages. So I think there are certainly ways that you can position yourself and show your skills and show, just like we were talking about earlier, Hassan mentioned that, I'm sorry, Caitlin said that you don't have to work necessarily with a tech background, but you could still be in that field. So I feel that you don't have to have the cookie cutter resume or the cookie cutter background. You just need to have the skills to apply and the passion for the industry and be able to tell the story and your story in that way, and then it'll come across. So yay for you and your MS, great, fantastic.
I agree with you. I also would recommend thinking about how you're positioning that knowledge on your resume. A lot of times, and you guys are doing this now, like when you do your capstone, also some of the work that you're doing is somewhat internship based because a lot of it is real life. Think about how you're positioning that as almost like a project or an experience and what you got out of it. It doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, need to be deep experience that you exhibit, but as long as you're showing that you've gotten something out of what you've experienced thus far that's relevant to PR, we can work with it. I think a lot of other agencies, depending on the agency and the team and what you're applying for, that can fluctuate too. I know that I started out in-house, and then I went to smaller and mid-sized agencies where they're much more flexible in terms of picking up entry-level staff with less experience. At Fleischmann, we tend to have a few requirements depending on the team, just because we are such a large agency and we work globally across every client. There's a learning curve for sure. So I also think when you're applying, consider how you're building out your resume and consider who you're applying to. Make sure that you're super engaged with that agency, that you know what they're doing, like Stephanie said, make sure that you know what they're looking for and show them that you're that person. Take what's on their website and say, oh wait, I've done that. Write out how you've done that on your resume. It might not be a full-time job. It could have been a project. It could have been a volunteer project that you did with a professor after hours, whatever it might be. Just show that you're willing to bring it to the table.
Mm-hmm.
This is good stuff. I'm taking copious notes, mind you. I'm taking notes. So here's a question specifically directed to Caitlin. The asker says, I'm aware of a couple of development programs at Fleischmann and have actually applied, but would applying to more than one opportunity be perceived negatively?
Not at all. We'll take it. Fleischmann is a massive organization. There's a lot of people in HR, and bless them all. One of them is going to be joining me later. Danielle, she's the head of our talent development. We have a lot of applications that come through in various formats, whether it's a referral from employees, whether it's a submission online. I don't think it hurts to share it more than once, especially if you're making updates. We always want to look at the latest to make sure that we're considering you for the best job. So I am not against you reminding us that you're great.
Awesome. Okay. Next question. If you want to work in PR, I want to work in PR in my future career, but what kind of things or skills do you want from us specifically to get from school? Is there something, I know you sort of answered that question before, but for someone who is unfamiliar with the PR world in general, what advice would you give them?
Get a degree at NYU.
Of course.
There's a lot of there's a lot of great books out there. I love the two books that Harold Burson wrote about the PR industry. He's the founder of Burson Marsteller that recently passed away. I think understanding how impactful public relations has been throughout history is a good way to start introducing yourself to the industry. There's 3 or 4 major trade blogs, publications: PR Week, Holmes Report, PR Daily, PR News, or other good ones to check out and stay on top of. So those would be my recommendations.
I would also note that it's surprising to me, but it's also really important. I love when a candidate comes in and they can clearly define for me what we do in PR and also have a better understanding of how we fit into the larger marketing and business mix. When you can talk to me about your experiences and how you worked across teams with advertising, marketing, social, digital, or at least when you've taken classes that show you how you can work together and how important these things are and how synergies are essential. That is such a real world problem that will come up, especially in agency life. We are working usually with multiple agencies on the same client, all trying to take the lead. Someone's a digital person, someone's creative, someone's advertising, someone's marketing, someone's PR, someone's a consultant. They're all over the place. So demonstrating that you have experience and knowledge across all of these things is really, really important. And I think a lot of the classes at NYU do that. So definitely pay attention and don't be afraid to talk about other areas. They're all related.
Definitely take advantage of the LinkedIn Learning via NYU. If you're curious about a certain aspect that you might not have covered in classes that you've taken thus far. I know there's a lot of graphic design, like how to, like for Adobe Creative Suite, just take advantage of all the resources that you have as an NYU student and just learn as much as you can while you have those resources.
All right, so I'm gonna take over for Professor Hawkins and asking a couple of questions coming in. So we have a few coming in, and again, everyone please type in your questions in the Q&A box. So the next one: in all opportunities, it's imperative to make connections, especially positive ones. Is there a time when a relationship may not seem genuine if one asks for a recommendation or a mentorship?
I think one thing to notice is the why, right? Like in everything that we do. So I think if you're asking for a mentorship or you're asking for, the recommendation is simple. You want a recommendation because you want a job from someone, or you want someone to vouch for you. But I think when we think about mentorships, before even asking for that, I think you should write down like 3 things that you want to gain from the mentorship and 3 things that you want to give back as well. And how do you plan to achieve those? And also kind of knowing that person, knowing, what they're dealing with work, possibly with their home life, again, via like social or anything that they may like or dislike. But I think kind of figuring out how you can add value to someone opposed to just the ask. And then I think then it's not so. I think if you want a recommendation, like Caitlin said earlier, if you have an ask for someone, just ask them. Hey, I'm applying for this job and they're looking for 3 professional recommendations. I know that we work together on X, Y, and Z. Would you mind if I gave them your information, or would you mind writing one out? Then it's super simple and it's clear, opposed to a beat around the bush, or it takes 10 emails to figure out what you want, but just very simple. Here's what I need. Here's a possible deadline. If you're able to meet it, let me know, if you're deadline heavy. And then again, I think just with the mentorship, just think about the mentor themselves and just think about what they're doing with work and how many things they have. And maybe it's something where you say, can I help you on social? I wish one person, here's a big tip for everyone who's tuning in. And all the panelists can answer. Did anyone get a DM or an email from anyone who registered for tonight to say, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you online tonight. Do you need anyone to tweet live for you or do an Insta live for you? Did anyone get an offer? I didn't, but I think that's one of the biggest secrets. I wish someone would. I wish someone would say, hey, Stephanie, we know you're going to be speaking on this conference and we would love to help you with social, or is there anything we can do? Can we do anything, screenshot it or screen record it while it's happening and send it to you afterwards that you could also post on your channels? I think doing things to kind of insert yourselves professionally into someone's life and make it easier, those are great ways to get your foot in the door, to really make a genuine connection, and to find a mentor that will develop into a really great relationship. So I think just be straightforward about what you're looking for and how to do it and kind of go from there.
Great advice.
Agreed.
Did anyone ask you? I don't think so.
No, I did get some LinkedIn messages that were excited and positive, which was awesome. So thank you. But no social media offers. We all know I could use some help in that department if you do.
Okay, we have another question coming in. How do you show HR that you are qualified or that you really have the kind of skills they are looking for?
I would say that HR is usually given a checklist. And most of you have access to this because it's pretty much the job description that's online. So I would make sure that you're tailoring your resume to clearly delineate that you have the exact skill set that they are looking for. HR really is the first line of defense. So if they need to meet a certain amount of those requirements and you don't have them, you might be number 2 instead of number 1 on that pile. I don't think it means that you won't be engaged with, but it definitely will put you at a disadvantage if someone else has clearly shown and demonstrated that they have this exact skill set and they're checking the boxes. So don't be afraid to take a look at the job descriptions and elaborate on them and tailor your resume for every single position that you're applying for. It really makes all the difference. I think many HR people will thank you for clearly noting what you've done instead of asking them to dissect your resume more deeply and hope that you're the right candidate that they're putting in front of the team.
Does anyone have anything else to add? Okay, next question. Which industry do you think would have larger demand on PR in the next 10 years? Or
sorry, Bonnie, can I have one thing before you do that?
Sure, yep.
I agree. Definitely having items on your resume for sure. But I think also if you have like examples of your work. So if you can bring in, and I know it may sound corny, but especially if you're in school and you don't have any work experience, but if you can have a writing sample from a class, or if you can show your capstone, or if you can show anything that you've done, whether it be in class or previous work experience, or even volunteer work related, to be able to say, here's something that I've written or that I've put together, or an example of anything that you've done in PR before, I think that also gives the person who's interviewing you a little bit more perspective on who you are, what you do, and kind of how you put your work together. So I think having something visual also and tangible would be helpful.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the next question, which industry do you think will have the largest demand for PR professionals in the next 10 years?
Natan.
Yeah, I think that is a good one for me.
Yeah.
I'm smiling because we just, we're being faced with a really important challenge where, we sell a PR tool and we need to continue doing that, but we also need to be really sensitive in how we reach out to people. And we just spent 2 days putting together a list of industries that we think need more help now than ever before, that we're going to try and offer help building lists, reports, monitoring the news. So if anyone wants that list, reach out to me on social media and I'm happy to help. 10 years from now, I don't know. I don't really know what's going to happen a month from now, but I think there are lots of industries that are going to be hiring a lot. Government is one of them. FEMA is being deployed, the organization that helps during crisis like these. And I remember even during Hurricane Sandy, right after I had graduated NYU, seeing FEMA hiring people all over New York. So that's going to happen again. I think they're going to need communications help too. So that's one small one. Hospital systems, insurance companies, delivery services. And I think looking at those kinds of industries, you might want to consider them as we're going into this new economy. But I also think technology is a great place to look. I think technology's always been at the forefront of innovation. And we're going to see lots of great opportunities there. So whether it's machine learning companies or artificial intelligence, and the way that's affecting every industry is really important. So those are the ones that come to the top of my mind, but it's a question I'm trying to figure out on my own too.
I would also add on the B2B side of things, manufacturing. That's something that we've seen slowly increasing on the PR front, but it's really blowing up right now, obviously. And then also marketing services, more like in the CRM space. I think that's going to be vastly important, especially as we move to a more virtual world in light of coronavirus. So I would definitely say that those two things I would predict would continue to grow over the next 10 for sure, and have immensely in just the last two. I'd also encourage whoever asked this question to keep in mind that PR isn't just consumer facing. So of course, tech and healthcare are blowing up right now and going to continue to grow. I definitely agree. But the B2B side of the house is one of the areas of PR that's consistently always been around and done pretty well for itself. And I think we're going to see that take precedence in many areas and with many clients. So that's something to consider too.
Okay, so second follow-up question from the same attendee. What hard skills do you think we should have if we want to work in PR agencies?
Know how to use Muckrack.
Yes, I really love Muckrack. Media relations, that's super important. I know that it's difficult to get it unless you have an agency type experience. Media relations is very paramount. I would also say that writing is definitely important. If I receive emails even that have one off punctuation moment, I just can't even. It really drives me nuts. So I would say writing is really, really important. And it doesn't have to be, like I mentioned earlier, some massive research moment. Just write me a normal email with no typos and I'm good. I think that those are, in my opinion, the biggest hard skills. A lot of soft skills I would almost prioritize over those for sure. Things like EQ are really important, especially when you're working in a service-based industry like Stephanie had mentioned before. What we do is service. So that's paramount for me, but if I had to pick two hard skills, I'd go there.
And in all seriousness, I don't just mean Muckrack. I think at agencies, and Stephanie, Caitlin, correct me if I'm wrong, knowing Muckrack and all Muckrack's competitors are really important, because I think a lot of entry-level work you do at agencies is media list building, media research, compiling coverage reports, doing the legwork and backbone work that helps sometimes the more senior people or experienced people execute the strategy that they need to. So if you can go into an agency knowing the tools that you're going to be asked to use already, or at least knowing what they are, I think that could give you a really big leg up and help master something. And I've seen, so many countless people that we got to know really earlier in their careers who mastered a skill set with some kind of technology that were able to then leverage that to elevate their career. Because the same way, if you're, like Michael, and know how to do a virtual background on Zoom and impress everyone, you're going to be able to do that in other ways with technology too.
Yeah, I wrote down research and then the presentation skills we talked about before, but just piggybacking on that, I think being able to research all of our industries are changing so frequently. The editors change from where they're going, so using the software helps, but then also getting to know them personally also helps a lot too. But just researching and knowing what's on trend, what's coming down the pike and why, and being able to lend into those discussions and really help to steer those discussions is really, really critical. I think, you know, you go into a team meeting, you go into the boardroom and being able to share information about what's happening opposed to just kind of holding that, but like those, hey, did you know moments? Did you hear about this? This happened over the weekend. All those things, really keeping your ear to the ground. That's what's really important. So yeah.
All right, so I have a few more questions in the Q&A box, but Shayna, I want to make sure you get to all of the questions that you were prepared to ask. Did you have any others, or should I keep going with the Q&A box?
You can keep going with the Q&A box.
Okay, great. So the next one is coming in. Many professors emphasize that it's important to be familiar with a different business and combine it with PR. I got my undergrad in media and communications. How would you suggest I prepare myself by learning something different while I get my master's in PR and corporate communication?
I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
I would just say like take classes that you ordinarily wouldn't. I know when I was in the program, I always was like geared towards global communications, like more of like the classes that I thought were like more fun. And I really had to like go outside of myself and take like investor relations and those types of classes. So just like make sure that you're taking classes that you don't necessarily like want to like are particularly enjoyable, I guess, but like stuff that like you need to know, kind of like what Stephanie and Caitlin were mentioning earlier, that will be useful as you kind of go into your professional career.
If I can add on, I think in addition to those classes, like your PR and then your business classes for sure, but I think also some of the cultural classes that you'll need for important business meetings and when you're doing those coffees. So learning things about different foods and restaurants and wine and art and culture and just getting out in the world and experiencing those things. I think that those are things that you should also focus on as well, just to kind of keep that evolution going. So those would be some other really great ones to focus on.
Also, read. Just read. I know you're tired of hearing about this. Everyone tells you to read. If you want to become an expert on a topic, buy all the books on it and read it. If you want to learn more about management in the space, read every type of conflicting management book that's out there. I think that we underestimate ourselves and our own ability to teach ourselves new things. Put yourself through school a little bit, and then you can bring that learning back to NYU in your classes. And I think that that's honestly the best gift you could give yourself. Make yourself the expert.
Hey, great, thank you. So going back to networking, when is the best time to send a networking email or reach out to someone to start that networking dialogue?
All the time.
Yeah.
I agree with all the time. I'm a big fan of like scheduling emails for really early in the morning. I think people are less distracted before the workday begins, so there's maybe more of a chance you'll pique their interest. But no matter when you send it, keep it super, super short. However long you were going to make that email, cut it in half. If you were going to make it a 3-sentence email, still cut it in half. Just by definition, whatever you write at first, cut it in half.
Yeah, I also think when you send those emails, I always find it helpful, or if you read something in an article and it's something that the person you're sending the email to can benefit just from knowing that you're aware of it, or maybe it's helpful. Hey, I read this article and I thought it might be of interest. I think, again, like adding value. How can you add value to people opposed to the ask, the want, and the need? So you're just like increasing their to-do list, but instead, hey, I know they're really interested in the Knicks. Did you know that? Whatever. And here's a link to that article. Boom. Now all of a sudden you're someone that person's looking forward to getting an email from, opposed to, oh no, what do they want now? Or, oh no, I can't reply back quick enough because I'm busy. But instead, here's something that they're helping me with. And I think that's great. So I think adding those kind of tidbits to the emails are really helpful too.
Okay, so I want to just let everybody know we have about 10 minutes left with this panel before we break off to the breakout session. So keep sending in those questions to the Q&A. Again, I'll go through them in the order they came in, but just letting you all know we have about 10 minutes left. So to the panel, when you did your first intern, specifically a PR internship, what were the most difficult or tough challenges that you faced, and how did you solve those challenges?
I can start. Were you talking, Shayna?
I was about to, but you go first.
Oh, no, go ahead. I didn't see anyone moving. Go ahead.
This wasn't my first internship per se, but it was my first internship at a PR agency. And I wasn't particularly moved by the work that we were doing. It was advanced manufacturing, chemical companies we were representing, which is all really important. It was just a little dry to me. But I kind of had to go into it and be like, I'm here for a reason. And I need to glean whatever I can from this experience and just like compartmentalize, like I'm here to learn and I need to get as much as I can from this opportunity and be able to take this experience into something that I might enjoy a little bit better. So I think it's important to, if you have an internship or you have an experience that is not necessarily something that you are particularly like ecstatic about, you have to take the good from it and be able to learn from that experience to be able to take that to your future experiences.
I think one of the challenges that I had, someone asked previously, did you start your career in New York City? And I didn't. So I went to college in Atlanta at Spelman College. So my internships and my first experiences were all in Atlanta, and the landscape then was very different. There weren't as many opportunities. So for us, there weren't there was no Tyler Perry Studios. There weren't so many reality shows happening there. We had CNN, and then we had Jezebel magazine, and that was like super new. So I knew I wanted to be in fashion at the time, and I found out that there was like one designer in Atlanta, and his name was Anthony Leggins, and I somehow found him. I think I went to a panel he was talking about. He was one of the panelists, and I heard him, and then somehow I got the courage to like ask him for his information, and somehow or another I asked to be an intern. And I don't even know if he was looking for an intern. I didn't care. I just knew he was the one person in Atlanta that I had a connection with that was in the industry that I thought I wanted to go into. So after class, I would take the MARTA, which is our train, to a bus up to Buckhead, and I would intern with him. Whatever he needed to happen would happen. If it was answering the phones, fine. If it was making, copies, whatever it was, fine. And the one thing that I was saying to him was like, your design should be in magazines. And so I actually started to try to like pitch them. He was a subscriber for WWD, Women's Wear Daily magazine, or newspaper, and I couldn't afford it as a college student. The subscription was like $300 a year. So one of my takeaways and one of my benefits was that I could read WWD while I was there. And so that was kind of my little mini FIT, or that was my way of kind of learning about, trade, fashion, designers, all the words that I should be learning. So I think there's always something that you can learn, like different ways of doing it. But my big challenge was to convince this fashion designer who didn't know me, who didn't even want an intern, that he needed me. He needed an intern to be there. And then I wound up hosting a pop-up on campus before pop-ups were even cool, trying to sell the blouses. And the crazy thing was that its clothes were like, the blouses were like $95 and $100 up and higher. They were also in Nordstrom. So here I am on a college campus with, college students and a clothing rack trying to do that. But that was my big thing. And I think the experience taught me a lot. It taught me, to go for what you want, to ask for what you want. And it taught me about marketing, about PRing it. I had to promote the event and do everything in between. So yeah, I think it just teaches you a lot about what you have to do just to kind of go for it. And it's great to have someone believe in you, because he could have said no, but instead he was open to it. And later on, he actually got into one of the magazines that I pitched him. So that was, that was great for him. So yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from Michael Diamond. He says, as a university, interested in getting our students up and running on the enabling technologies, we have often found it difficult to get free and fully functional licenses, especially in social media. Any thoughts on this?
I would recommend looking to up and coming technologies and companies. One of the things that we started doing that I help oversee at Fleischmann is determining what new services and products are considered startup stage and emerging, and we look to see how we can work with them. A lot of times they're much more receptive to having a test group, which is great. As long as you're willing to give two-way feedback and be their guinea pigs a little bit. But I would highly recommend going after some of the smaller startup services that are honestly still even in beta. Those tend to have similar experiences and might be the next best thing or the next big thing.
I think a lot of companies too will offer free access to students to tools too. So, I know we do that a lot. So don't ask, don't get. So no matter who it is, maybe reach out with your nyu.edu email and ask if you could, have a trial or something. I know we do that.
Okay, great. So again, we have just under 5 minutes left. Let me just see the questions coming in. Okay, so going back to mentorship, what do you think is better? Is it better to have one stable mentor that's a long-term mentor, or do you think it's better to have several mentorships from different people, maybe that don't last as long, or that you have a few at the same time?
I think the more the better, as long as you're able to keep up with it. So I liked Caitlin's rule of 3. I think that's a good thing to go by, and I think quality over quantity for sure.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have anything else to add? Okay, so we have just a few minutes left. I want to start wrapping this up. Shanice, do you want to throw up, do we have a thank you slide or the breakout session slide to throw up? Thank you. So in a few minutes, we're all going to meet in one of these 5 breakout sessions. So again, we sent you an email with the link, but I can share it in the chat box. So before you log out of this session, make sure you check the chat box and find the link for the session that you want to attend. And again, we're logging out of this session and then we're going to log back into one of the 5 concurrent sessions. So let me put that in that information in the chat box for you now.
Those with outstanding questions, we see that there are 3 or 4 more, just so that we can be respectful of our panelists' time, as well as to make sure that we stay on point and on time for our breakout sessions. We will ask you to take the 5 persons who posted questions here, perhaps take their questions to one of the breakouts that you see on the screen, and post them or ask them live in the breakout sessions, so that we can make sure that your question is answered. And I'll also point out, if you notice, there is no discrepancy. You'll see session A1 and session A2. Yes, they are the same topic. But there's so much content, we decided to split that into 2 sessions, so you're not seeing double. That is correct. You have an A1 and an A2, as well as session B and a session C and D. So we hope that you'll take the questions that you've posted for the 5 that we weren't able to get to, that you will redirect them to the panelists within your breakout sessions.
Okay, so thank you all again for attending. This is really great 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 questions from the audience. Thank you to all our panelists for taking the time to come and meet with us virtually. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you all in 5 minutes.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
Safe, everyone.
Thank you, guys. A phenomenal effort. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Michael.